Yeah, yeah.
Give everybody
Yes,
the,
my name is Richard Thripp, and I'm local here in Volusia County, born in Daytona Beach, and live over in Orange City near Deltona. And I'm a progressive Democrat running for Congress here in the 6th District, which includes all of Volusia and Flagler County, Palm Coast, and Daytona, New Smyrna Beach, DeLand, Deltona, and a little bit of a little bit of St. Johns County as well. I've been running since the beginning of the year, and I have a platform of supporting a universal basic income, universal health care for all Americans, and a Green New Deal to address the terrible climate crisis that's going to get worse and worse each year. You know, we're hearing now that we might have 8 major hurricanes this summer and fall because ocean's getting hotter, and there's more humidity and water vapor from greenhouse gases. I have a PhD in education I just completed last semester at UCF, University of Central Florida, and I've taught over 250 to 300 future teachers in educational technology, so they can go, you know, when they teach and know how to use the internet, Google, we don't do Facebook, but we do LinkedIn and a few other things like making presentations. I studied financial knowledge of future teachers, and I found that they don't have much, and actually teachers have a lot lower salary now when you count how much they've cut back the retirement plan in Florida. And that's true for all public workers. So you hear, how can you raise a family now? You know, how can you get by? A lot of people have to have more than one job, and a lot of people are struggling, and a lot of people are being brainwashed to blame the wrong people. They're blaming people around them as, oh, that person over there is getting too much for free. They're lazy and they're the one holding me down. It's not true. It's all meant to, you know, divide us.
okay, well, I'm Tom Wells. I'm running in Florida CD3, which is Electra, Bradford, Union, Putnam, Clay counties in totality, and the upper northern half of Marion County, including all of Ocala. I have a PhD in theoretical physics, and I have grandchildren. The import of those 2 statements is that I can read the science of climate change, and now I have to add the science of epidemiology, and I see the danger for my grandchildren. Now, you can't save part of the world, so we have to be in the business of saving the whole world. That's a job before us. And we're very fortunate, as Martin Luther King would intone, that we live close to the center of the problem. We are seeking to go to the House, which has the power, in conjunction with the Senate, to overturn everything bad that's happening in this country, and that has been the province of Congress for 40 years, to create bad laws.
Yes,
the
definitely.
bad laws come from lobbyists, and how much influence do lobbyists have now? I think
almost unlimited, it seems, you know.
I think an example of their influence is the fact that Pelosi's relief bill, which probably is not going to see the light of day, that's what Mitch McConnell said today, includes money for 501c6. Those are lobbyists. So
how can you give,
begging Congress for bailouts in the hundreds of billions of dollar range. So they need us to give them more money so they can take more money from us.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I mean, this is something that should be all over the news, and people don't even know about it, or they hear it and they think it's not true.
It's owned by the guys who are getting the corporate cash, which is previously was known back in the 70s as our money.
Yeah, yeah.
If the sheriff of Nottingham had this system, he wouldn't have ever had to worry about Robin Hood.
Yeah.
We just pay our taxes dutifully, and we think they're going to go somewhere useful, and they don't.
No, and you know, you can look at that just by itself. All the money per year on war is over $1 trillion. Some estimates 1.2 if you count inflation. I mean, interest on prior debt. And then the giveaways to the ultra wealthy are off the charts. There was a CNN article recently saying they interviewed a man who is a real estate mogul. He was popping a champagne bottle by the pool when the CARES Act passed because he knew it would be a bonanza, millions and millions of dollars, 170 billion taxpayer-funded giveaway over the next 10 years, most of it occurring in the next 1 year, about 80 billion, by changing the way that they can depreciate certain assets and offsetting other income so that they really don't have to pay any taxes at all. It's just insane. What does that have to do with a pandemic? It has absolutely nothing. Well, and then people here are struggling. They're struggling very bad.
You mentioned teacher salaries, but everything right now is endangered. The pandemic is being used for profiteering.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then they say about the Democrats, oh, they never let a good crisis go to waste, because I believe Rahm Emanuel may have said that at one time. But the Republicans, they're always projecting. When they tell you something, like we just got a text message, Trump has ramped up his propaganda machine, and it's a text saying, read here about Biden's nepotism at bidensfact.org. It's literally how he's going to have such blowback because he has the most nepotism of anybody ever in the history of the presidency.
That's right. It's the big lie where you accuse the other person of doing exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the biggest part of the pandemic is not just the profiteering off of personal protection equipment, which is incredibly villainous, but the biggest part is Mitch McConnell's determination to not fund the states.
Yeah, that's huge.
What that means is that the states generally by law cannot carry a deficit. So when they run out of money, they are forced by law, if they're going to keep treating the COVID patients in the hospitals, they have to cut somewhere. In the first place they can cut.
Oh yeah, firefighters, teachers. That's what Governor Cuomo was just talking about on Mother's Day.
And the next thing is Medicaid. Medicaid is going broke in Florida right now. What do you do when people deserve care, but there's no money?
Yeah, and we don't even have what they enjoy in many states of expansion. We never got it. They won't let us have it. And it's a huge amount of federal fund. About $56 billion so far.
$56 billion of our own money over the course of the last 10 years.
Hey, baby boy. You want to come over and say hello? Come here now.
Curtis.
So this is my son. His name is Ricky.
Beautiful.
And he's
14
and a half months old. So I'm only 28. You know, I've been in school a long time because I'm glad to actually have a break from being in university. But you know, for me, there's such a future ahead that I can see the writing on the wall. And anyone who really looks into it and sees through, you know, like propaganda funded by the Koch brothers and others, can see that this is a serious problem and it's unprecedented in human history and the history of the planet. Because in the past, sure, millions of years ago, and you have to go back millions of years, we had more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But, you know, the oceans were much, much, much higher then, and it didn't raise up that high that quick. You know, we've gone from like 280 to about 417 parts per million. It doesn't sound like much of carbon dioxide, and it makes a huge difference. It's really a danger.
The tipping point could be very close, and it could be dramatic. Many of the mass extinctions previously, they depended upon carbon dioxide being put into the atmosphere by volcanic eruptions.
Yeah.
Well, the volcanism has decreased a bit, but the scientists in Siberia suggest that there's 650 gigatons of methane under the permafrost at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, and methane is about 80 times worse at the beginning. It fades off quicker.
It depends actually on what time frame you average over. If you average over just a 5-year time frame, which is relevant to the world right now, then 150 CO2 is. They quote these numbers averaged over 20-year or 100-year spans, which are not relevant. We're going to be at a tipping point in the next 10 years if we do nothing.
Oh, yeah. It is very bad. And obviously, at this point, we have to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere too, which is getting cheaper, but it's still pricey. It's still pricey.
Well, the cheapest way is still trees.
Mm-hmm.
The carbon capture, CO2 capture mechanisms are very intensive. And
they have some plans with certain types of shrubs, I think. Honey, could you watch him for a minute? Yeah. Okay. Just give me 1 second.
I was liking watching him.
I know.
How much time do we have?
10 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
7.
Okay. He's a good kid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah, you're right. And when you look at the Green New Deal, it's really become obviously an attacking point for the right, and they don't understand it. They're talking about it being socialism, but what we have now is socialism for big oil. Fracking makes no sense. Fracking, we don't have it in Florida, but it wouldn't make any sense to do it here anyway. But when you look at Pennsylvania and other states,
oh no, it's the
terrible.
Rated methane makes it about the dirtiest fuel in the world.
It's not even profitable.
The tar sand oils from Canada, where they first cut down the arboreal forest, and then they use about 2 barrels of oil to get 1 barrel out. So the actual CO2 cost of a barrel of that is 3 times the cost of. You don't measure at the pump. You need to measure
the
equivalents.
whole thing. Because if you look just at the combustion of gasoline, 1 gallon is 6 pounds, it turns into 20 pounds CO2. And then if you have 110 gallons of gas, that's a metric ton. That is, when we talk about 40 billion tons a year, that's each ton is 110 gallons of combusted gasoline. But then on top of that, you have all that behind it of getting the oil, refining it, transporting it, your motor vehicle, being constructed out of metal and etc.
I mean, we're giving our lives, our children's lives, to the fossil fuel companies as an indirect subsidy. In America, there's a direct subsidy of maybe 50 billion a year, but the indirect subsidy is more like 550 billion. So
if you go in the future, if those people in the future could come back now and make a difference, they would pay a lot more than we're paying right now.
Well, no, they won't use. If they're going to be people in the future, they won't use fossil fuels.
They may be much less numerous. No, I mean, they would come back to now and prevent us from doing what we're doing and really try to wake us up because it's just craziness.
Well, you see, the weight of my grandchildren on my mind is stopping me, leading me to be very, very aggressive in pursuing the suppression of fossil fuels. So a carbon tax of $200 per ton of CO2 equivalents will cover what is the nominal social indirect subsidy that we give the fossil fuel industry. And
and you could do it without most people. You wouldn't have to charge it to individual hardworking Americans because there's so much wealth being sucked out of our economy at the top, right there.
Fuels would go up dramatically, but you compensate for that by distributing all the revenue, 100% of that revenue, equally to every individual. The people who are poor and have small footprints will come out way ahead, and the people who have large footprints will start thinking about.
Because globally there's 50% of emissions are done by the wealthiest 10%. And then the lowest 50% by wealth of the earth only emit 10%. It's a very large disparity. And we have the regular direct subsidy of letting it go on with big like tax breaks and interest-free or very low interest loans that you and I can't get for a credit card or a personal loan when they do these oil operations, whether it's regular or fracking. And the fracking is so unbelievably insane that they actually have a big byproduct, natural gas, coming out at the same time that they're getting the oil. In addition to it destroying our fresh water, they also don't have a use for that natural gas. It's worth less than zero. So now the EPA and Trump, they're letting them burn it off, flaring as it comes out, That's just crazy. I mean, it's making it so much worse. And the jobs that it's created are having such a long-term cost. You know, the short term you're getting like 1 cent, and in the long term it's costing you $1. You know.
Well, Trump, I think we both understand that he does not understand that it's even possible that anyone knows something that he does not know.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
the greatest danger is a person who does not know what he does not know. And Trump has that covered in spades. He is the greatest danger to this country and our country's history. And
I agree. And, you know, we have such an explosion on Earth, of course, of people going from 3 billion in 1960 to 7.8 billion now. And in the United States, you know, we have a larger carbon footprint. As you know, part of it is, of course, being a large country, but then another part of it is that we haven't really made the progress. But if you make the progress by turning this economy around, we will be the national, the global innovators when it comes to green energy, green technology, and we'll be exporting that all over the world. And so when people say, oh, China, what are you going to do? They're going to keep doing it. So like, what good does it do us to cut back? No, they're going to, you know, we're going to be able to sell this technology. And obviously already coal is getting to the point, it's past the point where it makes no sense. Even if you don't count the emissions, it's not cost effective to use coal.
No, coal plants are closing down and coal mines are closing down. And they're doing it abusively with golden parachutes for the owners and depleted pension funds for the workers. But that's true in pretty much all of the vulture capitalism. And that reflects bad laws, which give higher priority to interest paid to banks than to legally mandated pensions, which makes no sense.
The Federal Reserve, day one of the coronavirus, they were cutting interest to zero. They were doing huge. They have unlimited power of issuing credit, buying up stocks, buying up junk bonds.
That's why our wars are fought as a nation. We don't say, well, gee, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Hawaii, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
So the idea that we treat this pandemic as a state's problem is specifically designed to bankrupt the states because this administration wishes to punish and destroy the lives of working people.
Yeah, Donald Trump and the administration are literally waging war against the American people, waging war against the states. You know, even the governor, who's a Republican of Maryland, had to fly in supplies to not the Washington, D.C. airport, but the airport in his state because he wasn't sure if they get confiscated. Would
you like to give a summary?
We have 2 minutes. Yeah, I do you want me to give you 1 minute too? So I'll do half a minute.
Either way. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm running for Congress here, and you know I'm really hoping to help people in this area. We have a lot of poverty in Daytona Beach. You know, we have a tourism economy. It's going to be hit real hard after coronavirus ends, and right now. And I want to make a difference, and that's why I've decided to do it. And the great thing here is that for some reason nobody cares about this race after the previous person had a lot of fundraising but didn't do well. So, you know, there's a chance to win it. I'm going to win the primary for sure because my opponent doesn't do anything. He's running for his fourth time and makes no appearances. And then I'll be up against Mr. Waltz. My name's Richard Thripp, thripp.com, THRIPP.com. And I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, I can be found on the web at TomWellsForCongress.com or Tom Wells for Congress on Facebook. And what I particularly look forward to bringing to Congress is the idea of a strategy to turnover in Congress, to convert them from corporate slugs to representatives of the people, to offer them redemption. And the way in which they can feel redemption is to pass public funding of elections, because when they have public funding, then they can do good things for the people. The public funding has to be clean and separate from the corporate funding, and later we can worry about overthrowing Citizens United and writing amendments.
Yeah.
But first, we got to take back control of the Congress before we can do anything. I see the public funding as the path to do that, and the path to make sure that the people re-elect you is to pass single-payer health care at the same time.
Yeah,
And
the main job as a congressman is
impressive
to be on the phone. Yeah.
pandemic has revealed the deficiencies, the gross deficiencies of our healthcare system relative to any other developed country in the world.
Oh yeah, we're paying a lot, getting very little. And the most important job of a congressperson is to be on the phone to call for donors.
That's not going to be my job, and it's
Yeah,
not your
not
job.
mine either.
It's
Yeah.
a new standard for representing the people and knowing what's going on and actually
Yeah.
reading the bills that we vote for.
Yeah,
Richard,
reading the bills, writing the bills, couldn't everything.
let's spend a few minutes with you. We will do this again. Thank
Yes, I enjoyed it very much, Dr. Wells, and you have a good evening.
you, Dr.
Good
Thripp.
evening.